Alara Voss stood in the center of the great hall, her hands bound, her head held high, while every eye in the Blackthornne pack watched her fall. Torches lined the stone walls, casting long shadows over the faces of people who had once called her their future queen. Now they looked at her as though she were a stranger, a criminal, someone who did not deserve to breathe the same air as them. At the front of the hall stood Blackthornne, the Alpha King, his jaw tight and his eyes hard as frozen stone. Just 3 days earlier, he had held her hand and promised to stand beside her forever. Now he stood several feet away, refusing to meet her gaze, as if looking at her might weaken his resolve. "You are accused of murdering Lyra Thorne, sister of your Alpha King," the pack elder announced, his voice echoing through the silent hall. "The evidence is clear. Your scent was found near her body. There are witnesses who saw you leave her chambers that night." "I did not do this," Alara said, her voice steady, despite the storm raging inside her chest. "Damien, look at me. You know me. You know I could never hurt Lyra. She was like a sister to me too." But Damien did not look at her. He could not. The grief of losing his sister had hollowed him out, and in his pain, he needed someone to blame. The evidence, however flimsy, gave him a target for his anguish. "Take the mark from her," Damien said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper, yet it carried through the silent hall like a blade cutting through the air. 2 guards stepped forward. Alara felt the searing pain as her pack mark, the symbol that had bound her to Blackthorne since birth, was stripped away. It was more than a physical mark. It was her identity, her home, her sense of belonging. As it disappeared, so did every right she once had within these walls. "You are banished," the elder continued. "You will leave these lands by sunrise and never return. If you are found within our borders again, you will be killed on sight." Alara looked at Damien one last time, searching for any sign of doubt, any flicker of the man who once loved her. She found nothing but a wall of ice. "You will regret this," she said softly, not as a threat, but as a simple truth. Then she turned and walked out of the hall, her back straight, refusing to let anyone see her cry. The wilderness beyond Blackthorne's borders was known as the Feral Lands, a place where no law existed and no pack claimed territory. Lone wolves who wandered there rarely survived more than a few weeks. The land was harsh, filled with rival packs, wild beasts, and treacherous terrain. Alara walked for 3 days without food, without shelter, without hope. Her body grew weak, her steps grew slower, and on the 3rd night, she collapsed beneath an old oak tree, ready to accept that this might be where her story ended. It was there that Kale found her. Kale was the leader of a small group of rogue wolves, outcasts who had been rejected by their own packs for one reason or another. Some had been falsely accused like Alara, others had simply been born into circumstances that made them unwanted. Kale himself had once been a warrior of a proud pack, until a rival alpha framed him for a crime he never committed. "She's still breathing," Kale said to his companions as he knelt beside Alara's unconscious body. "Bring her back to camp." When Alara woke, she found herself in a small cave, wrapped in a worn blanket, with a fire crackling nearby. A woman with kind eyes handed her a bowl of warm broth. "Drink this," the woman said gently. "You will feel stronger soon." "Where am I?" Alara asked, her voice hoarse. "Among friends," the woman replied. "Or at least, among people who understand what it means to be cast aside." Over the following weeks, Alara learned the stories of the rogue wolves who had taken her in. Each one carried a wound similar to her own, a betrayal, a false accusation, an unforgivable act of cruelty from those who should have protected them. Kale had lost his entire pack status because a rival wanted his position. Mira, the woman who had given her broth, had been blamed for a hunting accident that killed her own brother, though it had truly been an act of nature beyond anyone's control. "We are the forgotten ones," Kale told her one evening as they sat around the fire. "No kingdom wants us, no pack claims us, but here, in the Feral Lands, we survive because we look out for each other." Alara felt something stir inside her, a spark of purpose she had not felt since her banishment. These wolves were strong, capable, and full of untapped potential, yet they lived in scattered groups, hiding from stronger packs that hunted them for sport or enslaved them for labor. "What if we didn't just survive?" Ilara asked one night. "What if we became something no one could ignore?" Kale raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean we train, we organize, we become strong enough that no pack, no kingdom, dares to threaten us again." It took months to convince the scattered groups of rogues to unite under one banner. Many had grown so used to hiding that the idea of standing together felt impossible, even dangerous. But Ilara traveled from camp to camp, listening to their stories, understanding their fears, and slowly earning their trust. During this time, Ilara also began to notice changes within herself. Her shifts, once slow and difficult, became faster and more powerful. Her senses sharpened beyond anything she had experienced before. An elder rogue wolf named Old Bramwell, who had studied ancient wolf lineages before his own exile, recognized something remarkable in her. "Do you know what you are, child?" he asked her one afternoon, watching her shift with unusual ease. "I am nothing," Ilara replied bitterly, "a wolf without a pack." "No," Bramwell said, shaking his head. "You carry the blood of the moon bloodline. It is said to have vanished centuries ago, a bloodline so powerful that a single wolf of pure moonblood heritage could command the loyalty and strength of 100 ordinary wolves. I have not seen true moonblood strength in my lifetime, until now." Ilara did not fully believe him at first, but as months turned into years, she could not deny what she was becoming. Her presence alone seemed to calm the most volatile of the rogue wolves. Her voice carried an authority that made others want to follow her without question. Wolves who joined her group, drawn by rumors of a fair leader who protected the forgotten, found themselves shifting more easily under her guidance, as though her very blood strengthened their own. 5 years passed. What had once been a handful of scattered rogue wolves became a disciplined army of thousands, spread across hidden camps throughout the feral lands. They called themselves the Ashfang Legion, and their name began to spread fear and respect in equal measure among the kingdoms that had once dismissed them as nothing more than pests. Ilara trained every single member herself, teaching them not just how to fight, but how to trust each other, how to build a community where no one was left behind. She built schools for the children born among the rogues, a system for sharing food and resources fairly, and a code of honor that valued loyalty over blind obedience. Yet even as she built her kingdom in exile, a part of her never stopped thinking about Blackthornne, about Damien, about the truth of what really happened to Lyra. It was during the 4th year that Ilara received unexpected information. A wolf named Soren, who had fled Blackthornne after witnessing something he could not forget, arrived at one of her camps seeking refuge. When he learned who led the Ashfang Legion, he asked to speak with her directly. "I saw something the night Lyra died," Soren confessed, his hands trembling as he spoke. "I was too afraid to say anything. Cassian, the Alpha King's beta, was in her chambers that night. I saw him leave just before you were found near her room. I always believed you were innocent, but I was afraid speaking up would cost me my life." Ilara felt years of anger and grief rise up inside her, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Why do you tell me this now?" "Because I cannot carry this guilt any longer," Soren said, "and because I have heard what you have built here. You give people like me a chance to be brave again." With Soren's testimony, along with careful investigation conducted by Bramwell and several trusted Ashfang scouts, Ilara pieced together the truth. Cassian had wanted the position of Alpha King's most trusted advisor solidified permanently, and Lyra had discovered his plans to manipulate Damien through false counsel. To silence her, Cassian killed her and made certain the evidence pointed toward Ilara, eliminating both a threat to his ambitions and a rival for Damien's attention. Ilara now had a choice. She could ignore Blackthornne entirely and focus on building her own kingdom in peace, or she could return, not for revenge, but to reveal the truth and finally close this chapter of her life. She chose to return. Word of an approaching wolf army spread through Blackthornne like wildfire. Scouts reported thousands of disciplined warriors marching toward the kingdom's borders, led by a mysterious commander known only as the Ashfang Queen. Panic spread through the pack as memories of old wars resurfaced. Damien rode out personally to meet this threat, accompanied by his strongest warriors, prepared for battle. What he found instead left him speechless. At the head of the massive army stood Ilara, no longer the frightened, banished woman he remembered, but a commanding presence radiating quiet strength. Her eyes, once filled with desperate pleading, now held calm confidence. "Ilara," Damien said, his voice catching in his throat. "I am not here for war," Ilara said clearly, her voice carrying across the field to both armies. "I am here for the truth." She presented Sorin's testimony before Damien and the assembled pack elders, along with physical evidence gathered by her scouts that confirmed Cassian's involvement in Lyra's death. Cassian, present among Damien's advisors, tried to flee when he realized his crimes were about to be exposed, but Ilara's warriors captured him before he could escape into the surrounding forest. Under the weight of undeniable evidence, Cassian eventually confessed. He admitted to killing Lyra to protect his ambitions, and to framing Ilara because she had begun to suspect his manipulative influence over Damien's decisions. The pack elders, horrified by the truth, immediately restored Ilara's innocence and her rightful place within Blackthorne's history. Cassian was stripped of his position and faced the harshest punishment their laws demanded for his betrayal. Damien approached Ilara after the trial concluded, his earlier coldness replaced with visible remorse. "I failed you," he said quietly. "I let my grief blind me to the truth, and I broke something that can never be fully repaired. I am sorry, Ilara. I am truly sorry." "I forgive you," Ilara said, and she meant it. Holding on to anger would only poison the peace she had worked so hard to build for her people. "But I am not the same woman you cast out 5 years ago." "I can see that," Damien replied. "You have built something remarkable. Would you consider returning as Luna? Together we could unite our people once more." Ilara considered his offer carefully. Once, becoming his Luna had been her greatest dream. Now, standing before thousands of wolves who trusted her, who had rebuilt their lives under her leadership, she understood that her path had changed forever. "My people need me," she said gently. "The Ashfang Legion is not just an army, Damien. It is a home for those the world forgot. I cannot abandon them, not even for you." Instead of returning to Blackthorne as Luna, Ilara proposed something different. An alliance between two sovereign packs, Blackthorne and the Ashfang Legion, built on mutual respect and cooperation rather than dependence. Damien, humbled by everything he had witnessed, agreed without hesitation. As the sun set over the field where two armies had once stood ready for battle, Ilara turned to lead her people back toward the lands they now called home. Damien watched her go, understanding fully now what he had lost and what she had gained in the years since her banishment. Ilara Voss, once cast out and left for dead, had returned not as a broken woman seeking forgiveness, but as a queen in her own right, leading the strongest wolf army the kingdoms had ever known. Her story became legend among both her people and Blackthorne's, a reminder that even those who are broken and abandoned can rise to become something far greater than anyone ever imagined. And as she walked at the head of her legion, surrounded by the family she had built from nothing, Ilara finally understood that true strength was never about being chosen by others. It was about choosing yourself, again and again, until the world had no choice but to see your worth.